Everybody, welcome to the Phoenicia Show podcast and blog, episode number 7. I'm your host, Audia Jones of thephoeniciashow.com. So it's The Phoenicia Show, TheFanesha show, SHOW.com. Be sure to follow us if you aren't already on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We are at The Phoenicia Show. You guys want to make sure that you subscribe, like, and follow. And I don't even know what else to tell you guys. Once you see who our guest is, and I'm sure you can see him already, that shouldn't be a problem whatsoever. Our show focuses primarily on politics, culture, and community. So if you are watching on YouTube, again, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video. And so this is a 2-part segment. We're going to go into the first part. Typically, we do about 30 minutes for each guest, but this guest is so special. We are going to do a shorter period of time and then reward the longer period to our Patreon family. So if you haven't joined our Patreon family, make sure you get over to Patreon, sign up for an account, and join the family, The Phoenicia Show. So without further ado, I just want to talk to you guys about who our special guest is. It is Chris Senegal, none other than Lake Charles, Louisiana, born and raised, and now a native Houstonian. Chris really began his career with an engineering degree. Guys, catch that. He started off with an engineering degree, moved into day trading, left day trading, and literally conquered the real estate game. This man went from renting, flipping, to real estate investment, and at this point is literally buying blocks. So from that point, like I said, Chris is, I don't know, the Michael Jordan of the real estate game. He is the Michael Jordan of the real estate game. And so as of April 2017, Chris's company has embarked on it was his first revitalization project at that point. Now he's on to his second revitalization project. But the first one was a $3.8 million project, 14 townhome development on a block of property that he initially owned in 2013. So not only was this man wise, but he was also patient and moved into the right area. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. And so, Chris, I'm going to dive right into it.
Okay.
When we talk about corporate America, that's essentially where you came from. And now in 2020, that's not corporate Chris anymore. So how did you get from corporate America, working for a railroad company, to being a real estate mogul, investor, and entrepreneur coach?
Yeah. Okay. So, I went to college, full scholarship. I didn't know what I wanted to go to school for, honestly, but they were like, be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. Engineer took 4 years. I was like, I'll go that route. Then I ended up getting a full scholarship and a guaranteed job when I graduated from a railroad. So I took that route. Graduated, I got put on this really big project that even the guy that used to train me during my summer internship thought that he was going to get. And then my boss ended up being the star of the company, a young black lady named Martita Mullen, and she was about 33 at the time. And she was put over $100 million project. I was her assistant project manager, and she was publicized all over everything for the company, for diversity, for leadership. But working with her one-on-one, I realized she really just wasn't happy every day. She was stressed out. I was stressed out. And so within that first year, I was like, man, I've been sold a dream. This is not what I thought corporate America was going to be like.
Right.
So I just started reading, and I just started trying to figure out how to get out. And I just happened to be at a training for my job one day, and a guy was sitting by the pool all day for like 3 days on his laptop. And I was like, man, what is this guy doing? So I went to talk to him, and he said he was trading options. And so it was foreign language to me, but then he kind of showed me what it was, where it's like, instead of actually buying stocks, you're buying the contract to purchase the stock at a certain price. And if the stock goes above that price, you still get to buy it at whatever your contract number was. And so I was like, oh, okay, I could see how that could make some money. And then he started showing me the money he was making. I was like, wow, making a lot of money.
Okay.
And it was completely counterintuitive to what we were taught. Everybody's taught to, get that degree and use that resume and get a job specifically in what you went to school for. And this guy was doing something completely different out the box. And so that really opened my eyes to entrepreneurship, to business, to investing, to opportunities to think and make decisions and make money versus having to trade time for dollars to make money.
Right, right. And okay, so we have corporate Chris. Corporate Chris leaves, well, hasn't left yet, but has actually run into somebody who's a day trader. Now, how long did you kind of sort of mentor with that gentleman? Was it over the course of like 1 day, 2 days, or did you guys keep in touch with each other?
Oh yeah, we kept in contact. I worked closely with him for about 18 months.
Oh, wow.
So we started in like the late 2006 all the way to the beginning of 2008. And he was making a lot of money in 2007, but when the recession really hit in 2008, it was a lot of volatility. So a lot of the things that you were taught as patterns to look for and things to buy, or times to buy and times to sell, it was kind of hard to follow that training because the market was just crazy and like prices were all over the map. So it got really bad, and so I decided to get out of that before it got worse, and it fell into real estate.
Gotcha. And for some of you guys who don't know, and a lot of people probably don't know, I literally just learned what an option was. But the difference between an option and stock, obviously, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a stock, you actually own a slice of the pie or own part of the business, whereas the option, you're just kind of temporarily, I don't know, renting or holding on to the option to purchase that you can sell at any time.
Right.
Usually shorter periods of time. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. That's 100% correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So the option contract it gives you the right to buy the stock at a certain number.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, but it's significantly less. So let's say Beyonce's coming to town and you go to, and the tickets are going to be $250 when they start, but you go to somebody that usually buys a bunch of tickets and you say, hey, I'll pay you $500 right now to be able to buy 100 Beyonce tickets from you at $275.
Right.
And so they're going to be like, okay, it's free money for me right now, and if it happens, if you execute, you execute on it. If you don't, you don't.
Right.
Well, by the time the concert gets here, the tickets are all sold out. Now everybody's selling tickets to get a ticket, you got to pay $300 to get it from anybody. Right. So now you remember you paid this guy to go do this. So now you can go to him and say, hey, I want those 100 tickets at $275 right now. And then you give him the money, and then you turn around and sell all of them for $300 a piece. So that's essentially what an option is. It gives you the right to have the right to buy it in the future. Now, if those tickets didn't get to 300, if they didn't get to 275, right, you probably would have lost that money.
Gotcha.
So,
but
that's like very, very simple explanation of it. It's more complex. Yeah.
Definitely read up some more. Not even read up some more, guys. Head over to chrissenegal.com. You don't even have to just read up on it. You can actually get your own mentor, because no sense in reinventing the wheel when we have somebody that's already gone through it. So check that out, chrissenegal.com. So question, Chris, how did you transition? So now you left from being corporate Chris to literally being a day trader, to now you're saying, hey, I want to head over to the real estate game. What was it that swayed you or pushed you into the realm of real estate over anything else?
Real estate, I just kept realizing that it seemed to be the most stable of the investment vehicles outside of work. The majority of first generation wealth is generated through real estate. And so that's what really attracted me to it. And at the time when everybody else was probably scared of real estate because of all the foreclosures, I recognized that there's a lot of inventory, a lot of houses that you can buy at a deep discount because nobody wants them right now. So it ended up kind of being a perfect storm for me to get started back in 2008.
And that's awesome. And one of the things that you've said in previous videos, so if you guys don't follow, make sure you go check out his YouTube page, again, his website, and I believe everything's on your link tree, so you can see everything from there. But one of the things that you spoke about is you're really a visionary. You go to areas and you've seen areas, and I know you kind of, the first project that the buy the block, like this man literally bought blocks. When you said you observed the transition surrounding the downtown area, explain how it is that what caused you to be a visionary versus what 97% of people see and say, oh, I'm going to drive by that has no value. Nothing's going on over there. It's run down. It's, drug infested or whatever is going on in that area. But what was it that brought that true vision to your eyes that most people don't see?
Yeah, so even doing fix and flip, I realized that sometimes we're in neighborhoods and we're revitalizing things, and a lot of times the buyers, after you renovate the houses, don't look like us. Whereas if I would have brought somebody that did look like me over there, they would say, "Oh, this is still too rough. It's not nice. I need to be in the suburbs where the crime rate is zero and the school is excellent." But on the other side of that coin, when you look at gentrification, is revitalization. It's just that it's another group usually doing all the revitalization, and they are willing to come in earlier to those communities. So usually we call it the hood, and they're walking their dogs. So it's like, understanding that you have to follow the trends in the city and watch what happened to other neighborhoods. For instance, we have the Heights here in Houston. 1999, 2000, you could have bought a lot for $20,000 to build 2 houses on. Now you can't buy a single lot in the Heights for less than $250,000. And that's happened over and over and over. And it went counterclockwise around downtown in Houston. And Fifth Ward, when I bought in 2013, was the last quadrant where that hadn't started yet. So I knew that, being the first into the market and having the foresight to actually monitor the trends in the city, it made sense that it was a calculated risk, that if I could buy it, as long as I could hold it long enough for the redevelopment to catch up, then that it would be a sure bet. And then that would be my way of starting the process of controlling something that happens as the revitalization happens, so that it's no longer just gentrification in a negative sense. It's revitalization with someone that's actively paying attention to the community and inviting people back that look like the people from the community, and making sure that we all understand why it's important for us to be back in these neighborhoods and not leave the low income people there to fend for themselves against the people from the outside that have no vested interest in whatever agenda they need pushed for them.
And one thing that I really like about what you're talking about is, you're somebody that's driven on the real estate end, on the, financial independence end, but you also seem to keep in mind the people who are less fortunate, right? So keeping that in mind and kind of wrapping that together, I guess what brought you to the point? Because, I mean, to be honest, you are MJ in the game. You don't necessarily have to worry about those that are less fortunate. What is it that causes you or brought that to your attention to say, hey, this is my responsibility, or this is a responsibility I want to take on for myself to make sure that others who couldn't typically, who would typically get left behind or pushed out, I need to account for them as well?
Yeah, for me, it's about having collective communities. Like, we've had independent millionaires since slavery, the abolishment of slavery, right? There's always, Madam T.J. Walker. We've already had people that are independent millionaires, but that has not changed our community, our culture, the way we're treated in this country. And it really has to come back to us taking control of our own economic positions. And for that to happen, you need everybody. You need all levels of society to be in the one neighborhood. So the mayor has an initiative called Complete Communities, and that's what I call this. It's like, my goal is not to displace anybody with any of my projects. Zero displacement is literally the goal, because there's enough abandoned property, enough blighted property, there's enough drug infested property that we can remove and bring in new construction and bring in the higher incomes from the suburbs. And then what that also does is it makes the average income in the neighborhood look better. So then when you ask a grocery store to move into the neighborhood, they actually see some money there. Asking the government to do it or pay for the grocery stores to come back doesn't work. Those businesses have very low profit margins. So we need us out of the suburbs, back in these neighborhoods. And we indirectly or directly then help the lower income people in the community. Gotcha. That's a lot more important than just making sure that the city's building a whole bunch of low income housing, because you just concentrate them all together and you don't give their kids any representation of what people that look like them are successful are. They got to drive to Pearland and Katy to see that. So we solve a whole lot of problems by making sure we don't displace them and keep them in the neighborhood as we come back to the neighborhood alongside them.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And like you said, I when you bring in those other businesses, tell us how does that work? And we're getting to the end of our first segment, but how does that increase property values for anybody that's out there watching from a real estate investment standpoint? The fact that you're actually buying blocks, right, in these areas where people are like, oh, just forget about it. When you create this community, right? So that's essentially what you're doing. You're creating this community. You're bringing back the community. You're bringing back the lifeblood in that community. And so, what is it that when you attract businesses into a certain area, what is it that it does to that specific community, to that area? What does it do? And I know you touched on it a little bit.
Yeah. So when you bring employers back, and meaning businesses, you bring jobs into the community. You create entrepreneurs in the community that can be supported by, people that look like them. So, it's a win-win on all sides, and we need more of that. We need more entrepreneurs that can be successful. A lot of times it's almost like when you go to one of those neighborhoods that is all low income and you set up a business, you do it almost philanthropically because you don't really know if you're going to make money, or even the businesses that think they will make money don't, because the people just don't have a disposable income. So you have to be strategic. You have to have what they say in real estate. You need the rooftops first, the houses with the people with the higher incomes, so that when the businesses do come in, they can be supported and they can be sustained long term. And so all those factors just play into creating a community that can thrive. And I would add one more thing. Before desegregation, that's how these communities were, because we could not patronize other people. So like Fifth Ward on Lyons Avenue, you had doctors, lawyers, cleaners, you had tailors, you had restaurants, anything you could think of, insurance companies, everything, because it had to be all Black. And you still had low income people in the neighborhood. You still had the employees that worked in all those businesses in that neighborhood. Unfortunately, when we desegregated and we earned the right to move to other neighborhoods, we felt like we had to prove that we had that right, and we actually executed it to the point to where we neglected everything that was left in our communities. And so this is the opportunity, like you said, to bring the lifeblood back, to bring that sense of community back that we had before.
Yeah, and I think that's that's something very, very important to remember. And again, I think there are certain things that separate the good from the great. And I think the fact that Chris is so well-rounded, and not that my opinion is so weighty, but just from the outside looking in, as far as everything that he knows and where he could possibly have gone with this, but the fact that he takes into consideration the community as a whole is huge. We have so many people that don't do that, and even people that aren't on your financial or economic standing or in your position are more solo-minded.
Right.
So hats off to you. Thank you for doing that. And before we kind of wrap things up for this first segment, I do have a quick question. Now, we have, so many people nowadays would be like, oh, when I purchase a home, that's investing in real estate, or I've purchased an asset, or, and I've learned very quickly through study that just because you purchase a home, doesn't make it an asset. Typically it's a liability. Can you explain to us the difference between purchasing a home that may be an asset or is typically a liability versus actually investing in real estate?
Yeah, so I tell people this all the time, and realtors hate when I say it sometimes, but if simply buying a home was creating an asset or an investment, there would be no such thing as foreclosure. That would not happen. And people that face foreclosure bought the wrong house, or they were not financially prepared to buy it, and that investment turned into a money pit, or it turned into something that ruined their credit as well. So what you have to understand is that an asset is something that generates income for you or gives you a return on your investment. So to put it in common terms, if you look at everything you spend on the house that you buy, I'm talking about from the mortgage payment to the insurance to the taxes to the yard maintenance to the repairs to anything else you do to that house in that year, that's actually a lot of money that you've put into this house. And you have to then look at the value appreciation of that house. Did the value of the house go up more than the money you put into it? If you put $15,000 into it that year, did the house go up at least $16,000 in value? If it did, then you got a return. You got a positive return because the value of the property has gone higher than what your investment was in it. If it did not do that, that's not an asset. It's not an investment that's giving you a return at all. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just your primary residence. You just have to understand what you really have. You have a liability. But ways that you can kind of ensure that doesn't happen to you is making sure that when you use a realtor, which you should always use a realtor as a buyer because it doesn't cost you anything, make sure that realtor is looking at the value appreciation in the area, the demand in the area. You want to make sure the houses are going up in price. You want to make sure people are actively still buying houses. You want to look at if there are houses for rent, how much they're renting for, because you want to make sure that the rental market is higher than the mortgage payment. And what that'll do for you is if you have to move, if something happens where you lose your job, instead of this house now becoming a burden and becoming something that puts a big blemish on your credit, you can rent it out and actually make money off of it every month. And if it's in the market where there's demand for buys, there's a demand with buyers, if you have to get out of the house, you can always sell it. But the values have to be going up. If the values are stagnant or going down, sometimes you can't sell because the expense of the sale will prevent you from making any money or breaking even. So those are factors that you really have to consider when you're buying a house. You have to buy in the right location. You have to make sure you have multiple backup plans in case something goes wrong. Mm-hmm. And if the property you buy can't check all those boxes, then yeah, it is an asset. Outside of that, it's really not.
Gotcha. And then just the market of the Airbnb, we know that's something that's kind of popped its head around the last probably decade, maybe a little over a decade. But what is your thought on factoring in the Airbnb and the ability to actually Airbnb your house out?
Yeah, so Airbnb definitely can generate higher revenue every month and higher profits. A good rental probably will give you about $400 a month. With Airbnb, about $1,000 a month would be a good starting point for Airbnb. There's a lot more active management tied to that because it's basically like you're running a one-room hotel, cleaning up behind guests and making sure everything stays on point. But you can always hire a property manager for that manages Airbnb specifically. So yeah, Airbnb is definitely a good market. The current climate we're in right now, I would say if you're in a vacation state or a vacation city, it's going to be tougher for you to make money because a lot of people aren't traveling. However, a city like Houston, where there's still a lot of travelers that come here, we still have the biggest and probably the number one medical center in the world, in the country for sure. People still travel here. And right now, the social climate and everyone's been socially engineered to want to keep distance. So hotels won't come back for a while. I think Airbnbs will be doing very well.
Okay, and that's great. And so, of course, if you guys are part of the Patreon family, you guys can join us for segment number 2. I mean, you already heard this man is dropping gems, so you don't want to miss that second segment. And then just to wrap it up, Chris, where can they find you for those who may not be joining us in the second segment, but where can people find you?
Okay, so chrissenegal.com has links to my social media. It has links to my learning platform, which is learnfromchris.com. It's just my name, chrissenegal.com. You can just Google my name and it'll bring up links to all of my websites. My Instagram is _INVSTR. It's investor with just the I, it's the only vowel. So _ investor. And yeah, that's it. That's the main ways to get in contact with me. Or keep track of what I'm doing. Yeah.
What'd you say?
Or keep track of what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yes, and keep track of the projects, guys. And what's so funny, we are going to go into the entrepreneurship piece and more about Chris's entrepreneurship training and all of the stuff that he's he's investing into his kids. We're gonna start picking his brain and getting some of that information. But what you guys don't want to miss is, when you are someone like Chris, complacency is something that he learned is an enemy. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. You miss opportunities. You also have to be prepared for the next big opportunity. And when you become complacent, sometimes you put yourself in a position to miss out on a lot of things. And if whatever you're currently depending on that's keeping you complacent goes away, then you're really in a bad position.
Absolutely. So thank you guys for joining us for segment number 1. We're looking forward to segment number 2, and we will be hopping over to our Patreon family. So you guys join us over there for segment number 2. And for all of you guys that are watching on YouTube, thank you. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. So it's The Phoenicia Show. Make sure you guys are following us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The Phoenicia Show. Or you can check us out online at thephoeniciashow.com. And thank you, Chris. And let's head over to segment number 2.
All right. See you in a minute.
Okay.